The war ended without music, without victory speeches, and without heroes standing tall. It ended in silence. Station K-17 floated in deep space like a dead city, its metal skin torn open, its lights broken, its long halls filled with ash and frozen blood. Ships had already left. Armies had already moved on. What remained were ghosts and trash. That was when the Custodians arrived. They were not soldiers. They wore gray uniforms, not armor. They carried scanners, not guns. Their job was simple but heavy: clean the ruins, record the dead, and erase what the galaxy wanted to forget. Jonah Reyes was one of them. He moved slowly through the station, pushing a small cleaning cart that rattled softly in the quiet. His boots echoed in empty corridors. Every step reminded him that life had once been here. Families, workers, children, all gone now. Jonah had seen many wars. Not from the front lines, but from the end. He had learned not to expect miracles. In war, miracles usually taught you how to suffer more. His scanner suddenly beeped. Jonah stopped. He frowned and checked the screen. The signal was weak. Very weak, almost nothing. He followed it toward a collapsed medical bay. The wall had been crushed inward, metal folded like paper. Burn marks covered the floor. At first, he saw only debris. Then he saw the hand. It was small. Too small. The skin was not human smooth, pale blue-gray, with thin fingers and faint glowing lines under the surface. One finger was missing a claw tip. Dried blood floated nearby, frozen in zero gravity. Jonah swallowed. He had seen alien bodies before. Whole bodies. Broken bodies. This was different. It was only a hand. Poor kid. He whispered. He reached to tag it as remains. That was the rule. Scan, record, move on. But the scanner beeped. Again, Jonah froze. He looked closer. The screen flashed a warning he had never seen before. Biological activity detected. His heart began to race. That's not possible, he said quietly. A hand could not be alive. Not alone. Not after days in space. And yet, the cells were active. Not dying, preserved, protected by some kind of emergency stasis field. Old and weak but still fighting. Someone had tried to save her. Jonah carefully pushed aside floating metal pieces. His hands shook as he lifted the hand gently, like it might feel pain. It was warm, just a little. His chest tightened. This was not trash. This was not remains. This was a person who had almost been erased. Protocol filled his mind like cold water. Do not interfere. Reconstruction resources are limited. Non-human. Civilians are not priority. Jonah closed his eyes. He remembered the screams he had heard years ago. He remembered being too late, too small, too powerless. He opened his eyes again and looked at the hand. No, he said softly. Not this time. He placed the hand inside a biocontainment capsule and sealed it carefully. The scanner confirmed it. Life still present. Fragile but real. Jonah looked around the ruined station. One last time. No cameras work here. No officers watched. Only silence. He typed a false entry into the system with shaking fingers. Salvage material recovered. No biological value. The system accepted it. Jonah exhaled. As he pushed his cart away. He kept one hand resting on the capsule, as if guarding it. The hand inside twitched once, barely noticeable. Jonah felt tears burn his eyes. I don't know who you are, he whispered, walking through the dead station. But you're not alone anymore. Outside the viewport, distant stars burned quietly from just a hand. A choice had been made, and somewhere in the dark, destiny shifted. The reconstruction chamber hummed softly, filling the quiet lab with a low, steady vibration. It was meant for human soldiers, for repairing injured bodies after battles. Not for aliens. Not for fragile, unknown species almost erased from existence. But Jonah had made a choice, and he refused to let bureaucracy stop him. He wheeled the capsule closer, placing it on the chamber's cold platform. His hands hovered over the controls. Every system beeped at him, warning him. Restrictions flashed on the monitor. Unauthorized access. Non-human subject. Abort immediately. Jonah ignored them. The hand inside the capsule twitched, almost as if it recognized him, almost as if it trusted him. Weeks passed. Jonah did not sleep. He was not a scientist. He was not even supposed to be here. But every night, he stayed by the chamber, watching. His uniform was stained with oil and dust. His hair stuck to his forehead from the recycled heat of the lab. And every day, the alien hand changed. Cells multiplied, muscles formed. Tiny bones began to stretch and grow out. An old xenobiologist named Dr. Alara noticed him one evening. "You shouldn't be here," she said softly, looking at the growing form. Her voice was kind but firm, yet her eyes betrayed curiosity. "This isn't protocol." Jonah shook his head. "She's alive," he said simply. "If we can rebuild humans from ashes, we can rebuild her from a hand." Dr. Alara studied the hand moving gently inside the biochamber. "I've never seen anything like this," she admitted. "Her DNA? It's ancient, fragile, but it's fighting to exist. She doesn't have much time." Jonah nodded. He had already decided he would not let her time run out. He whispered to the chamber every night, even though she could not yet hear. "Hold on, just hold on. You'll be safe soon. I promise." Days turned into nights. Nights turned into weeks. Slowly, fingers became arms. Arms became shoulders. Small features appeared under the soft blue-gray skin. It was not fast. It was painful for him to wait. He often wondered if he was foolish, if trying to rebuild a life from almost nothing was beyond any human's ability. One evening, the hand moved differently. It curled around the edge of the chamber as if reaching for him. Jonah's heart jumped. Dr. Alara placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "She's responding," she whispered. "Emotion, recognition. She knows someone is here. She is not alone." Jonah felt a lump in his throat. He pressed his palm against the glass of the chamber. "It's me," he said. "Jonah, I'm here. You're safe. I'm not leaving." The alien's body began forming a delicate face. The shape was unfamiliar, beautiful in its strangeness. Large eyes like twilight pools blinked open for the first time. They were cautious, curious, fearful. Jonah felt a shiver run through him. She looked at him, really looked, and something deep in her small chest stirred. Life, recognition, perhaps even hope. Dr. Alara leaned close to Jonah and whispered, "She's dreaming." Jonah smiled faintly, though worry clouded his eyes. "About what?" The doctor shook her head. "Hard to say. Trauma, fear, maybe the war, but also survival. And maybe someone helping her." Jonah's hand stayed pressed to the glass. "I'll be that someone," he said softly. "I'll stay. I'll make sure she lives." The chamber opened at last. The small alien lay on the soft medical bed, her body trembling from new growth and new sensations. Her eyes, wide and unblinking, scanned the room. She was tiny, fragile, yet alive. Every cell of her body was a testament to survival, and every twitch of her fingers screamed a silent thank you that Jonah could not hear, but could feel. He knelt beside her, tears welling in his eyes. "You're here," he whispered. "You made it. You're alive." For the first time, the alien moved her hand toward him. It was small, weak, but deliberate. Jonah held it gently in his own, warm, alive, real, somewhere in the quiet lab. Jonah felt a strange weight lift from his chest. From a single hand, he had helped rebuild a life. And from that life, hope had begun to grow again small, Fragile but unbreakable. Outside, the stars burned cold and distant, but inside the chamber, warmth spread. A life had returned from the edge. And Jonah knew, deep in his heart, that this was only the beginning. The alien girl woke slowly. Her eyelids flickered, heavy with new awareness. Every nerve in her body screamed confusion. Every inch of her new skin felt strange. She tried to move, and the weight of her limbs startled her. Her chest rose and fell unevenly, as if she were learning how to breathe for the first time. When her eyes finally opened, she saw him, Jonah, gray uniform. Gentle eyes. Hands resting carefully on the edge of her bed. Not a soldier, not a scientist, not someone who would experiment on her. Just a human. And yet, in that moment, he was the first face she had ever seen after waking from the void. Her mind scrambled. Memories returned in flashes, fire, screaming, metal twisting, bodies torn apart, humans, many humans. All of them a blur of weapons and violence. Some of them had been kind, but the kindness had been rare. Now here was another human. One that radiated calm, not danger. She tried to recoil. Fear surged like electricity through her veins. She pushed herself back, but her body did not respond correctly. Arms and legs moved clumsily, betraying her fragile strength. Jonah remained still, eyes soft, voice calm. "Easy, easy," he whispered, holding his hands up, careful not to frighten her. "You're safe." The alien girl did not understand the words. The language was foreign, but the tone, the rhythm of his voice was gentle. It did not demand. It did not threaten. It simply offered. Hours passed. She studied his face. The lines around his eyes, the warmth in his expression, the slow, careful breathing. He did not rush. He did not panic. He waited. She was learning something new, patience, care, safety. Jonah did not leave her side. He brought water, small bites of synthesized food, and read aloud from old human books. She did not understand most words, but the sound of his voice was comforting. A tether to the living world. A bridge between the chaos of her past and the fragile hope of her present. One evening, she reached out with a trembling hand. It hovered above his arm, uncertain, cautious. Jonah leaned slightly forward and allowed her to touch him. Her skin pressed against his uniform, warm, real, alive. Jonah's eyes filled with tears, but he did not move away. He held her tiny hand, steady and strong. "You're alive," he whispered. "And you're safe." The alien girl blinked slowly. She had never heard such words. She had never known such meaning. Fear lingered, yes, but beneath it, a new sensation emerged. Trust, perhaps the most foreign feeling of all. Days turned into nights, and nights blurred into a gentle rhythm. She learned to move, to sit, to breathe without panic. And every day, the first face she saw remained Jonah's. She began to mimic his expressions. When he smiled, her lips twitched. When he frowned, her small brows furrowed. She learned communication in fragments. Simple gestures. Small sounds. Her voice cracked the first time she tried to form a word. Jonah laughed softly, tears slipping down his cheeks. "You're learning," he said. "You'll speak soon." She pressed her forehead to his chest one night. Tiny fingers curled around his sleeve. He felt her heart racing fast, alive, frightened, yet willing. Jonah held her close, whispering the promise that he would not leave her. That she was safe. That she was seen. Outside the lab, stars glimmered coldly. But inside, a small miracle had taken root. A life had returned from near erasure. A hand had grown into a body. And the first face she truly recognized, the face of a human custodian, became a symbol of comfort and safety in a universe that had nearly forgotten her existence. She still feared the galaxy, still remembered fire and metal, but Jonah's presence gave her something she had never felt before, a reason to survive, a reason to hope. And in that fragile trust, the beginnings of a bond stronger than war itself began to grow. For the first time since the end of her world, she was not alone. She was seen. She was safe. And she was learning to live again. The quiet sanctuary of the lab shattered one morning with the sharp, cold hum of authority. Alarms echoed through the corridors, red lights flashing violently. Orders came from the council, from high command, from people who had never seen her, never touched her, never held her hand when she woke trembling in fear. "She's valuable," a voice boomed over the comms. "Specimen 47A must be transferred to Research Facility Sigma for preservation and study. Custodian access revoked." Jonah froze. His heart thumped violently. He had known this day might come, but the reality hit like a tidal wave. Alien property. Not a life. Not a child. Not a person. Property. He rushed to the chamber. The alien girl was awake, alert. Her eyes, wide and unblinking, met his with raw terror. She had learned to trust him, to see him as a protector. And now that trust was threatened. "They're coming for you," Jonah whispered urgently. "Stay behind me. Don't move." The girl pressed herself against his side, her small hand clutching his sleeve. Her body trembled. Fear pulsed through her like electricity. Jonah felt the weight of it, heavier than any weapon he had ever carried. The first wave of soldiers arrived quickly. Their armor glinted under the harsh lab lights. Their weapons were precise, unfeeling, designed to suppress, to control. Jonah stepped in front of her. His body was frail, unarmed, untrained, but he did not step aside. "She's not property," he said loudly. His voice shook, but his eyes were steady. "She's a person. She's alive. And I won't let you take her." The soldiers exchanged amused looks. A custodian? Alone? Laughable. They raised their weapons. Orders were repeated. Compliance expected. Jonah knew he could not overpower them physically. But he did not need to. He could delay. He could obstruct. He could protect every precious second of her fragile existence. Doors locked, systems rerouted, access codes corrupted. Each small sabotage bought them moments. She leaned against him, trembling, silent tears streaking her pale cheeks. Jonah whispered promises he didn't know if he could keep. "Hold on. I'm not leaving. Not ever. You are not alone." Hours passed in tense standoff. Every footstep in the hall made her flinch. Every distant alarm made his chest tighten. Yet he did not falter. He stayed with her, protected her, shared warmth when the world offered none. That night, exhausted, Jonah sank to the floor beside her. She pressed her forehead to his chest, small hands clutching his sleeve. He could feel her pulse, fast and wild, and he whispered, "If they take you, I'm sorry. I tried." Her fingers curled around his, tiny and insistent. "You gave me body," she said in broken common. Her voice was fragile, yet it carried weight. "You are my world." Jonah's heart shattered and mended all at once. He realized something profound. This was no longer about rules, about protocol, about order. This was about life, about hope, about the bond between two beings from different worlds. He made a choice he could not undo. He would protect her, no matter the cost, no matter the risk, no matter the galaxy dot somewhere in the cold expanse of space. Station K-17 was alive with tension, fear, and defiance. In that lab, a fragile alien girl had found a protector, and a custodian had become more than a cleaner. He had become a shield, a guardian, a human refusing to let a life be stolen from the universe. Outside, the stars gleamed indifferently. But inside, hope burned brighter than any red alert, stronger than any order. A life, once nearly erased, had someone willing to fight for it, even alone. And that was enough for now. The day they came to take her was worse than any nightmare Jonah had imagined. The alarms blared, echoing violently through the hollow corridors of Station K-17. Red lights painted the walls in harsh streaks. Soldiers moved in with precision, their weapons trained on the lab where she waited. Fragile and terrified, Jonah stepped forward without hesitation. He was unarmed. He had no armor. But he had something stronger, purpose. "You will not touch her," he said firmly, voice carrying through the chaos. His heart pounded, every beat screaming fear. Yet every word held conviction. The alien girl pressed herself against him, tiny hands clutching his uniform. Her eyes were wide, reflecting every flash of red light, every soldier advancing. She trembled, but there was trust there, raw and fragile. She had learned to see him as her protector. Now that trust gave Jonah strength he did not know he possessed. The first shots rang out. Plasma bolts streaked past them, melting walls and scorched the floor. Jonah did not move. He stayed between her and the weapons, a living shield. The soldiers hesitated. They expected surrender. They did not expect a human to stand so firmly, so determinedly, between a child and danger. A bolt struck Jonah in the back. Pain exploded through him, and he fell to the floor, gasping. The alien girl screamed, a high shivering sound that pierced the alarms and echoes of the station. Her small hands glowed suddenly, light seeping from her fingertips like living energy. Her body had been gentle, fragile. But grief and fear unlocked something primal inside her. The energy surged outward, bright and uncontrolled. The station lights flickered and shattered under the force. The soldiers were thrown back, stumbling, shields failing against the unexpected wave. Jonah, bleeding but conscious, looked up at her. Her face was fierce, alien features twisted in determination, yet still small and trembling. I won't lose you," she cried. Her voice, shaky but loud, carried the weight of every loss she had endured. Every memory of fire, metal, and war channeled through her new body. She was fighting, not for conquest, not for revenge, but to protect the one human who had given her life again. Jonah reached for her, pressing himself close to keep her grounded. "I'm here," he whispered. "I'm not going anywhere." For a long, tense moment, time seemed to freeze. The energy around her pulsed and dimmed, and the soldiers, realizing they could not approach, began retreating. Jonah's body shook from pain, but his eyes followed her every move. She knelt beside him, hands glowing faintly as she tried to share some of the life force that had been sparked within her. Jonah grinned through the blood and exhaustion. "See, you are stronger than anyone imagined," he said softly. "Stronger than me. Stronger than fear itself." The alien girl looked down at him, tears in her glowing eyes. "You saved me," she said, voice breaking. "Now, let me save you." Jonah reached out and held her small, trembling hand. It was warm, alive, and real. He felt hope, fierce and unshakable, burning in his chest. Even in the midst of chaos, even against impossible odds, life had found a way. The soldiers had fled, confused and terrified of powers they could not control. The station was quiet now, except for the hiss of damaged systems and Jonah's ragged breathing. The alien girl stayed close, leaning against him, her small body radiating energy, vigilance, and gratitude. Jonah whispered, "You're safe. You're mine to protect. And I will, always." For the first time since the war had begun, he felt unshakable certainty. He had no weapon, no army, and no right to intervene, but he had something stronger. He had a purpose born from compassion. He had chosen to stand between destruction and a fragile life, and from that choice, a bond had formed. A human custodian and an alien girl who had been rebuilt from a single hand now faced the galaxy together. They were different, fragile, yet unstoppable when united. Outside the viewport, stars continued to burn cold and indifferent. But inside the battered lab, warmth surged. A human had stood between death and life, and the alien girl, her body new but her spirit fierce, had become a force no one could ignore. The station was quiet now, but the air still held the tension of what had just happened. Jonah lay in the medbay, weak and bleeding, while the alien girl sat beside him, her small hands hovering over his wounds, her body glowing faintly with the energy she could control now. She had saved him in her own way, even as he had risked everything for her. Human doctors arrived the next day, summoned by emergency protocol. They had never seen anything like her, an alien species almost extinct, rebuilt from a single hand, capable of energy far beyond anything in their records. Normally, such discoveries would be treated as property, studied and contained. But they hesitated. They saw Jonah's presence, his unwavering devotion, and something in their hearts shifted. He had saved her. He had treated her as a person, not a specimen. And somehow, that mattered more than any law or regulation. Dr. Alara, the xenobiologist, worked with the human doctors now. Together, they stabilized Jonah, repaired the damage to the station, and ensured the alien girl was safe. Every procedure was done not for profit or fame, but for life itself, for gratitude, for hope. The girl learned quickly. Words came slowly at first, broken and uneven. Human. Friend, she whispered one morning, eyes wide as she traced the lines of his face. Jonah smiled, tired but proud. Yes, he said. I'm your friend, always. Public news eventually reached the higher authorities. Reports of a human custodian who saved an alien species from extinction spread across the galaxy. People listened, debated, and some were inspired. Orders were reversed. Research facility Sigma was shut down. The alien girl was granted asylum. Her life, once nearly erased, was now her own. Jonah stayed with her every day. She would sit on his lap, small fingers curling around his sleeve, learning not just language but trust, patience, and the simplest of joys, a warm meal, a shared laugh, a quiet moment in the vast emptiness of space. He taught her about humans, about kindness, about the way life could persist even in the darkness. You gave me body, she said one day, her voice soft but steady. Let me give something back. Jonah's chest tightened. You already have, he whispered. Just by being here, by living, by surviving. Time passed. Slowly, she grew stronger, more confident. She learned to control her energy, to move with purpose, to speak fluently in common. And always, always, Jonah was near her guardian, her mentor, her first face of safety in a galaxy that had tried to destroy her. They spent long nights together, talking quietly while stars wheeled outside the viewport. She asked him questions about humans, about the war, about why he had risked everything for someone who was not even his own species. Jonah could only shrug and smile. Because it was right. Because you deserved a chance. Because life matters no matter whose it is. The alien girl repeated his words often, memorizing the cadence, the meaning. She began to see a world not entirely cruel. Humans were capable of destruction, yes, but also of care, courage, and sacrifice. Jonah was living proof. And for Jonah, the experience changed him too. He had spent years cleaning up after war, watching life disappear without hope. Now, for the first time, he had built life instead of witnessing death. He had found purpose beyond duty. He had found connection beyond species. In the quiet moments, they would sit side by side, hands touching, hearts learning each other's rhythm. Outside, the galaxy remained indifferent. But inside the medbay, warmth and hope flowed stronger than any rule, stronger than any order, stronger than any fear. From a hand, she had grown into a life. From his choice, he had grown into something more than a custodian. Together, they were proof that humanity's greatest strength was not in weapons, not in power, but in compassion, in persistence. and in the courage to protect what is fragile, even when the world demands you do otherwise. And slowly, the alien girl began to smile, learning the curve of Jonah's face, the warmth of his presence, and the quiet truth that humans, despite everything, could leave behind something lasting. Something good, something real. Years passed, and the galaxy slowly began to take notice. The alien girl, rebuilt from a single hand, once fragile and terrified, was no longer a child in hiding. She had grown strong, graceful, and intelligent, her presence commanding attention wherever she went. Her species, almost lost to the fires of war, had a future because one human had chosen to care. Jonah, older now, moved slower, his gray uniform faded and patched. His hands bore the marks of labor, scars from cleaning battlefields and tending the wounded. Yet when he stood beside her, he did not seem small. He had become a symbol, proof that ordinary humans could shape extraordinary destinies. She stood before the Galactic Council for the first time as an ambassador. The chamber buzzed with alien delegates, their faces curious, skeptical, even fearful. The girl's eyes scanned the room, then settled on Jonah in the back, his hands folded loosely, watching her with pride and quiet encouragement. "My people," she began. Her voice, steady but filled with emotion, were almost erased, reduced to a hand. Almost nothing. But one human, one custodian, chose to protect us. He saw life where others saw property. He gave me a chance when no one else would. And from that hand, a future was built. The chamber fell silent. Murmurs ran through the delegates. Many had only known humans as conquerors, traitors, or indifferent bystanders. Yet here was a living testament to something far greater: compassion, courage, the quiet power of one individual choosing to act. She continued, her gaze unwavering. Humans are not the strongest. They are not the fastest. They do not command the greatest armies. But when they see life, when they see the broken, they do not always look away. They sometimes stay. They sometimes fight for what cannot fight for itself. That is strength. That is humanity. Jonah's chest tightened. He had never imagined this moment. He had only wanted to keep her alive, to protect her from the galaxy's cruelty. Yet now, the choice he made in a small, ruined lab had echoed across the stars, inspiring hope, reshaping minds, and saving a species. The alien girl stepped down from the podium and approached him. Her hand, strong and glowing faintly, rested gently on his shoulder. "I would not be here without you," she said softly. "You gave me more than life. You gave me a world." Jonah looked at her, eyes misted with tears. "You gave me more than I ever expected," he replied. "You gave me purpose. You gave me hope." Across the galaxy, the story spread. Humans, long viewed as violent and selfish, were remembered for their capacity to protect, to nurture, to rise above fear and indifference. One custodian's courage had reminded the universe that even the smallest act could reshape destiny. For the alien girl, the memory of her first moments, the hand that was all that remained of her former life, the frightened awakening, the first face she trusted, would never fade. It shaped her, strengthened her, and reminded her always of the value of life, the power of compassion, and the bond between two beings who chose hope over despair. And Jonah, older and quieter now, remained by her side. Together, they walked through halls that once echoed with war and silence, now filled with purpose and possibility. From a single hand, a life had grown. From that life, a voice had risen. From that voice, a future had been built, a future in which humanity's greatest gift was not firepower or technology, but the courage to protect what others had abandoned. The stars outside continued to burn cold and distant. Yet inside, warmth and hope had settled like a permanent light. From a hand, from trust, from courage, the galaxy had witnessed something extraordinary. And for the alien girl and the human who saved her, The first face she saw, the face of a custodian, would forever be the face of home, of love, and of the unshakable power of humanity.